This isn't where you need to be. Run away. And hopefully we're all in the right spot. If you're not, take your chance to run around. So we're going to go through the syllabus today, and then we'll get started, because I know how much you guys love listening to the sound of my voice never ending for hours. Yes. Cry later, it's gonna happen. All right, so I've got the long version of the syllabus, which we'll be going through. So you've got the short version that saves as paper, so the important stuff you can't live without. But we'll go through the long version. Now, the long version can be found online. Obviously, you can go to Blackboard, click the syllabus link, follow it. Or you can go to just AC website, enter in syllabus, and you'll find the whole cache of syllabi. All right, requirements. We're going to do more than the minimum, because the more we have, the less each one is worth, right? Could you imagine having 2 practicals? I did it 1 year. All right, so we'll have a lot more than that. Prereqs, surviving A&P1. If you didn't, we'll have a bad day. All right, so we're going to pick up where A&P1 left off. So all the good stuff. So most of your organ systems, I start with eyes and ears. You may or may not have touched on those in A&P1. In theory, we get to it in A&P1. I don't even pretend. I'm not going to make it. Okay, so I start off with A&P2. Easing you into it before I slap you with endocrine system. And then we go all the way through the naughty bits. The books that are required, again, this is what the real book looks like. So you should have your e-text codes from A&P1 that are still viable, because it's viable for up to a year. I will post the e-text code for mine in case you did not already have that code somewhere. I don't do anything required using the publisher. You just need the code to the class to get to your ebook. So if you still have your other class in, you can still use that code. I just use that code. But this is the textbook. This is what you'll be using to answer your homework questions from, because I did something magical back in the day. When I made the homework, I read the book, and then I wrote questions. So these are my questions from your book. So I'm going to make you use it, because, you pay for it. You got to use it for something. Lab book, again, should be the one that you had for A&P1. We will be intimately working with this guy every single day. So if you didn't bring it today, what's wrong with you? You know better. You survived A&P1. You know we start from the beginning. So you should have it with you at all times. Now, if you have a real textbook, coveted, you don't have to bring it every day, because it's freaking heavy. But it's always a good resource to have. So those are the required texts everybody should have, and you should already have them because you took A&P1. Purpose and goals is to pass, so 60D for diploma, but if you want to do something with your life, you need something more than that. And again, this is where you have your personals. If you want to be a respiratory therapist, or you want to go into sonography, you better have an A, because it's very competitive. They take like 24 people a year. If you just want to be a regular nurse, C's are good enough, usually, depending on what everybody else is doing. So your goals, your life. Learning objectives, I'm not going to go through all those because I don't want to. But they're online, so you can see what you're supposed to pick up in A&P2. General information, disabling condition. If you have any kind of disability, whether it's a learning disability, physical disability, the color purple makes you puke, whatever, there is disability services that direction. I don't know. I think they moved it. They keep moving crap around. I finally figure out where it is, and they move it again. So that way, somewhere. You can go talk to them about that. If there's any kind of accommodations that we need to make for you, they will let me know about that. Usually they'll have a form for you to give to me, so I can make sure that we make those accommodations. But usually we don't have any big problems, because I don't time tests or anything like that. Material safety data sheets, in case you want to eat what we find in lab. Don't eat what we find in lab. They're in the lab room, and there's also a yellow cabinet somewhere with those. We will be doing some dissections. We'll do eye dissection, probably Wednesday. And then we will also be doing the sheep heart dissection, so that'll be fun. So just don't eat it and you'll be okay. Wash your hands, that kind of stuff. Campus police, so usually around you'll see their signs for 3715 911, and Scooter Cop will come and save you from whatever, Monday through Wednesday, sometimes on the weekends. They don't get here before noon on Sundays, so ask me how I know. I had a creepy homeless person one time. He was not happy to be here on Sunday, like, oh God. He was yelling at the wall. It was really weird. But the cops did finally show up 3 hours after I called. Don't worry, you feel totally safe. Anyway, but if you have them, they're around. You'll probably notice them if they give you a ticket, because that's what they like to do. Right? You gotta make money somehow. All right, grievance procedure. If you find out that I'm evil, and I am, right? It's like Disney evil, but still evil. The first thing to do would be come talk to me. So if you have a bad grade on the test, you make a 20, you're like, wow, talk to me about that kind of thing. And again, schedule an appointment. Don't just stand up in the middle of class and shout random words, because that gets weird for everybody. So after that meeting, if we're not able to come up with a happy resolution, then the next step would be to set up a meeting between the department chair, Mr. Porter, myself and you, where we talk about what's going on. And if that doesn't work, we move up the chain of command. So everybody has that in their syllabus, because apparently back in the day, people would like take a test, leave, and go complain to the president's office. We got a president now, so I guess there's someone to complain to. We were kind of rogue for a year and a half, right? So if you try to go over my head, they will go, did you talk to your teacher? Go talk to your teacher. They'll send you back to me. So you got to go through me first. So if there's an issue, come talk to me. Food and drink, you can food and drink if you want to. That's, your business. Do clean up after yourself. So if you make a spill, clean it up. I'm not your mama. They don't pay me to do that. In labs, I highly suggest not putting your food directly onto the lab table. So if you have to line up your M&Ms in a death march, put it on a piece of paper. Because the janitors, which you probably know if you've survived A&P1, don't really take their job seriously sometimes. They'll sweep maybe once a month. It gets to be fun. It's like, ooh, let's see how long that will stay there. Some stuff has stayed there a very long time. So they don't clean countertops because they think we have diseases that we're going to give them if they look at us wrong. So it is our job to clean countertops, and we know how well everybody cleans up after themselves. So yeah, I wouldn't lick tables or anything down there. When we are dissecting, put your food away in possibly a different table, because you don't want to worry about eye juice getting on your food, because that's not tasty. So make sure you clean up after yourselves. Attendance. I do take attendance every class period because the man makes me. And if I don't do attendance, I get nasty emails from the man's enforcer. I forget what her name is, but so many nasty emails you get from this lady. So how I take roll is I put a question on the board at the beginning of class. I gave you a note card today. From this point on, buy your own note cards. They're not very expensive. At the most, $1.25 at Dollar Tree, which should be all $1.25 tree. Sometimes $3 and $5 tree if you wander into the wrong aisle, right? Like, this is awesome. Oh, it's the $5 aisle. But anyway, I will put a question on the board. Now, typically the questions are going to come from your notes. They are kind of in order because I have you choose. You'll find out. Oh, so many issues. Since it's the first day, I don't expect you to have read the notes yet. If you have, you're awesome. So everybody's going to get a point for being here today, which is nice. By the end of the semester, you'll be like, what can I do for 1 point? Anything for a point. So we will put the answer on the board, or the question, on the board. On your note card, obviously put your name so you'll get points for being here if you get the question right. And of course, I know what to put down for the roll sheet. Today's question 1, why are you taking this course? Usually it's because it's required. No one usually takes this for fun. I've had some people do that. I worry, okay? But it's one of those, why are you taking this class? What grade do you want to earn? Again, this is your grade, not my grade. You have to put forth an effort. So coming to class and sitting will get you a warm chair at the end of the class period. You actually have to do something to earn a grade. And hopefully we will all learn that in A&P1. We'll see how that shakes out. And then, of course, why this grade, right? I want an A because I want to go into respiratory therapy, and it's really competitive. I want a C so I can see you later, that kind of stuff. Number 4, list 3 ways you will earn this grade. Okay, so this is to get you thinking about how are you working me into your life. Well, how are you working your life into this class? Because this is now your life. So what kind of things you're going to do, right? I'm going to record all my favorite shows on my DVR and watch it at the end of the semester, right? I'm going to take my notes with me when I pick up my kids from school because I always wander around meandering for like 10 minutes after the bell rings, okay? So how are you going to work as them? So 3 different ways. Don't put something lame like I'm going to come to class every day. Me too. I don't get a grade, okay? Again, I've had people come to class every single day and fail miserably. You've actually got to do something to earn your grade. So list those 3 things. That way you can have an idea of what's going on. And just for gigglies, who did you have for A&P1? Okay, so hopefully it won't be traumatic or anything like that, but everybody has different levels of intensity when it comes to how they present the material and how they grade and all that kind of fun stuff. So I can kind of see where you're coming from and see where you're going and, pray, that kind of stuff. So typically we'll have this up on the board the first of the class period. And once everybody turns in their card, we'll erase the question, answer the question, so you don't have to worry about it all class period, and then move on from there. We don't move on until we're done. So it's best to get this thing done as quickly as possible so we have more lecture time, because more lecture times means that we might get around to a review or something crazy. So since it's the first day, since it's not a subject questioning, make sure I get this before you leave the room. Okay? Typically, those will be turned in at the beginning of class period up here. Cell phones and pagers, in case you're still rocking a pager like it's 1999. For you little people, pagers were boxes that told you to call people before we had cell phones to call people at all times. Typically, if you're a drug dealer, you still have one, whether it's legal drugs or illegal drugs, right? Pharmacists sometimes have pagers. They're legal drug dealers. All right, so I understand that people like their phones and you got to have them on, but please, if you are going to have them on silent. Please don't have them on vibrate, because usually vibrate is just as loud as a ringtone for some people, and then it's just distracting. And once my train gets derailed, it's kind of hard to get it back on the tracks. It's like squirrel. Okay? If your phone goes off, we will judge your ringtone. Okay? So I'm disappointed so far today. Better ringtones, people. Okay? So make sure you have that off. If you're going to have emergency stuff like that, you have to answer the phone. Please step outside to do so, because it's rude to talk on the phone in front of other people. I know a lot of people don't realize phone etiquette anymore, but it's rude. And of course, if you're talking on the phone, we will stop and listen and judge you. So please leave if you have to do that. If a cell phone or pager goes off while you're taking a quiz, exam, practical, I have the right to give you a 0 for that, even if you don't answer it. So if the phone goes off during your lecture test, you know as well as I do, the testing Nazis downstairs will give you enough for the whole course. So they do take that kind of seriously. No texting in class. If you're staring at your crotch and giggling, I hope you're texting, and if not, go home and finish your business before coming back up here. So don't do that. Again, a lot of people forget I can see you. Shocking. Okay, so if you can see your teacher can see you and everything you're doing. We may not point it out as you're adults, but still think nasty thoughts in our heads. No musical devices, iPhones, iPods, I don't care, right? Headphones out, they don't look cool. So make sure I'm the only thing interesting that you're listening to, which means no other devices out for your hearing. Office, I'm in 203C, so you go towards the labs. I'm on the same side as the fish tank. And I have a whole bunch of Dead Things and Far Side comics and Harry Potter, so I'm really easy to find. I'm in a corner between the 2 rainbow doors. So go towards the rainbows, and you'll find me. I'm in the dark corner between the rainbows. Okay, so that's where I'll be if you need me. Office hours, Monday and Wednesday, 5 to 5:30, because I have a night class. And then Tuesday, Thursday, 3:15, 4:15, so after my afternoon lab until 4:15, and I get to escape. Class hours are listed there, so you can see where I am and the times I'm going to be in those locations. So if you can't find me, well, look on here, you might be able to. Email address, again, you can message me through Blackboard. Now, again, with Blackboard, there's a lag time there, because if you message through Blackboard, it will eventually send me an email, which I have to check, and then I have to go to Blackboard, and then I have to look at it, and then I have to answer it. So it takes a little bit to do that. Sometimes my phone lets me talk to Blackboard. Sometimes it's like, no. And of course, I'm not going to plug in my laptop, wait 15 minutes for it to boot up for me to get on Blackboard.
Did you just say we can email you direct?
Yes. So I do have my personal email listed there. And of course, there's also the ACTX email, which is just my name. And that one you can find on ACTX. All right. Tests and all the fun stuff that you get graded for. Lecture is going to be 55% of your total grade. 45% has to come from exams. The other 10% can come from whatever I want. I choose homework. Okay. So we'll have 5 lecture tests and a homework average, and the homework average will be your 6th grade. So we have 6 lecture grades. Of those 6, the lowest gets dropped. So if you take test 1 and make a 20, you might want to make that one your drop. So do really good on your homeworks. If you're like, screw you homeworks and make a 0, the 5 tests you take in the testing center will all count. Okay, so the top 6. And obviously homeworks are homeworks. You do them at home, you use your textbook, and you can do them up to 2 times. So that one should be a pretty awesome grade. And that averages to be a test. So with the way the homeworks are set up, there's a total of 10 homeworks. It's 2 per test because I've got issues with symmetry. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's issues. So 2 per test, so that gives us a total of 10. All of your online assignments must be completed by May 7th. So they don't have due dates because we have due dates. Then I have to go through and change them all, and it just gets really annoying. So I just leave them open, and then after May 7th, they become zeros if they're not completed. So make sure you get all your online stuff done by May 7th. With the homeworks, they're 10 to 20 questions, give or take. And you can do them twice. So if you do them once and you don't make a happy grade that you like, you can email me if you want and ask, what did I miss on homework 1? And I will send you what you missed on homework 1 so you can look up the answers in your book and make a better grade. So you can do them twice. After the second time, you're not going to be able to redo them again. Now, even though they're not due until May 7th, I highly, highly, highly suggest that you do them throughout the semester. Don't wait until the end because that's a whole lot of stuff to do during Testapalooza, which is code for a hell of a lot of tests in 1 week. But also by doing the homeworks, it helps you to prepare for the test. And I shouldn't repeat myself. So it's good to do the homeworks ahead of time so you can see what those questions might look like. The tests themselves, again, are going to be 50 questions, multiple choice matching true false on a Scantron. They're taken in the testing center. So you do have to schedule your time to go take those tests, show up with a pencil to take them, and then, all that kind of fun jazz. Your test dates are listed on your lecture schedule, so you know exactly when those are. The first one's next week. It's exciting. So make sure that you schedule your life around those things. So again, if you know the test is going to be Friday, Saturday, and you have to work, you're going to have to figure out how to, juggle life, all that kind of fun stuff. But you have plenty of time because I'm giving you all the test dates today. So you have time to make those arrangements, all that kind of scenario. So very good. Questions about lecture?
Yes. So just about going back to the quizzes or exams part, are they only open just that day for a specific amount of time?
So with the way the testing center works, as long as the doors are open, you can take them up until an hour and a half before the end of the day. Okay. So you just schedule a time that works best for you within those 2-day periods.
2 days.
Any others? Alrighty then. And we'll talk more about the testing center when we get to the paper. Lab, we're not going to go super detail into it because that's what lab is for. But it is 25% of your grades. There's going to be 4 practicals, 4 pre-practicals, and 9 quizzes. There are no makeup tests because the lowest one gets dropped. So the only thing you can do a makeup on is a practical. So no makeup tests, no makeup quizzes. Because you can't have a makeup and a drop. Department policy. So with the quizzes, there's no makeups. The lowest one gets dropped. Practicals will only be made up with valid written excuse during finals week. And again, your practical schedule, you'll get your syllabus in the lab. You do something to look forward to. Pretend you're excited. Ooh, yeah, you're going to learn to lie to me. It's great. All right. Final exam is 20% of your grade. It is comprehensive. Once I start talking about the crap on the board, any and everything said in this room can end up on that final. It is 100 questions, multiple choice, matching true false. I give you the Scantron and the test. You bring your brain and a pencil and, get her done. It'll be Thursday, May 8th, 9 to 11 o'clock in this room with me. So You'll have that. Now, the final exam, at least 70 questions are word for word off an old test because I'm too lazy to make 100 brand new questions. So this is why you will be getting your test back in electronic form so you can use them to help you to study for the final. Grading's pretty straightforward. I don't do curves because you make a 20, you don't need a pass. Okay? You will kill people if you make a 20 on tests. But I do round up. So if you have an 89.5, it's a 90, it's an A, Mazel tov, that kind of stuff. Computer lab, there's a computer lab that direction. It says located in the library. We haven't had a library in years. We have like one bookshelf over there because they replaced it with electronic crap, which I find disturbing. When you go to a college without a library, it's just sad. It's like not having a soul. But anywho, they've got a computer lab. It's underground. They call it like the underground. They were trying to keep the whole Badger theme, right? That's why we have all these stupid names. The Cubs with baby Badgers. All right, so underground, there's computers. Go play with them if you want. Science Enrichment Center, also called the Science Tutoring Center. Again, directly below us. So that is a lovely place that has models, bless you. It has slides. It has tutors. You can go down there and study. They sometimes have snacks, which would get me to go. So it's a good place to go study, learn, and get tutored if you need to get tutored. Science Testing Center, all of our tests except for the final exam are going to be given in the testing center. So you'll need to schedule the times to do that. You are to take your test outside of class time. I do reserve the right to dock 10 points if you go during class time. You're not supposed to skip class to take a test. That's counterproductive. It's just setting yourself up for failure for the next test because you're missing important information. So make sure you'll have time to schedule testing. Stuff like that. Mandatory tutoring, this is something AC has put into place because they feel the need to make you get tutored. So if you make below a 75, you have to complete mandatory tutoring. Now, if you've survived, again, A&P1, Watermark gets really trigger happy and they like to email you all the time that you have below a 75. You may need to talk to your teacher about getting mandatory tutoring. Like, really? They do that like 2 or 3 times a week sometimes. I will not start assigning mandatory tutoring until after test 2 because your lowest test gets dropped. So when we all take test 1 won't count because it's being dropped because it's the only test we have. So it won't be until test 2 where you'll get a better feel for what you're doing in life. So I will assign those. I will warn you that I've assigned those, and it will actually come, through Watermark saying you have been assigned by your instructor. Okay, so if you are assigned, you are supposed to go get your mandatory tutoring. If you don't, it stays on your record. Okay, so that's something that a lot of programs look at. Trio used to do it. I know dental hygiene likes to check up on you. So if you're late all the time, you may not get into dental hygiene because they check to see if you skip class. And if you skip class, they don't want you in your program. They used to ask us directly. Now they've stopped. So I'm guessing they're looking. Everybody can see your watermark. So they know if you're slacking and not coming to class or if you're failing or anything like that. So if you don't get your tutoring, it sits there and it shows that you did not get your tutoring, which to some programs is like, oh, she couldn't even bother to do her required work. Not going to come into my program. So get the tutoring done. It's not meant to be as a punishment. It's meant to help you to be successful so you don't have to take this class again, which would cost you more money. Okay? But tutoring will sit on your record staring at you forever if you don't get it done. Get her done. It won't hurt you, and it might help you to do better in life, that kind of scenario. And again, the tutors are pretty handy. You've already paid for it, so it's like free tutoring paid for by your fees that you've already paid in. You might as well make them earn their paychecks, right? That'd be me. I should be like, oh, I've paid for this. I'm going to make you work. Okay, so it's one of those things. They're already paid for by you. Might as well use them. They can help you with studying. They can help you with study techniques, tips, taking techniques. Heck, you can have them just quiz you off your notes if you want to do it that way. So they're there. Do utilize them. Make them work for their job, that kind of stuff. So if you get mandatory tutoring, you're going to have to go see it. But they do have free tutoring available all the time. You can start today if you want to. They're like, hey, they're like, we got to work the first week. So they're over there waiting for you. Desperately. All right, cheating. Cheating is bad. All right, so cheating will not be tolerated in any biology course at Amarillo College. On the first day of class, you will be required to sign the date of course contract. That's now done through like the testing center or something, but I'm still going to read you the little blurb. So included in the contract is the following statement. I fully understand that if I cheat or attempt to cheat on a test, I will receive an automatic F for the course. This grade will go on my permanent transcript and cannot be removed. Cheating includes, but not limited to the illegal use of books, notes, cell phones, copying of a test or portion of a test, or leaving the science testing center with the test with questions from the test. Cheating also includes helping or attempting to help other students to cheat on a test. So if you leave the test, walk out in the hallway, go, wow, number 5 was so hard, I put C. Cheater. Right? We don't talk about tests until they come back to you. It's like Fight Club. Right? So until you get your Scantron, you don't talk about the tests because you don't want to help them, because if you help them, they might get in and you not. It is competitive. You don't want to help your enemy. That kind of thing. So don't cheat. And it does go on your transcript, and it does say F for cheating. So even if you retake the class, you still have the F sitting there forever. Okay, so don't do it. We don't, it makes us really angry and bitter. And we don't need any help being angry and bitter because we're teachers, we're already there. Okay? You will not be allowed to take your test until the contract is signed and on file. No cell phones in the testing room. If we see your cell phone out at any time for any reason while in the testing room, you will receive an automatic F. Of course, they're tyrannical about their cell phones. Dropping. If you figure out, hey, I just can't deal with this person for 8 weeks. Okay? Come talk to me. Okay? So don't panic drop. I'll have sometimes students like test 1 and they make a 50 and they're like, oh, I have to drop. This is horrible. And you're like, dude, your lowest test gets dropped. If you make A's from this point on, you can still make an A. But if you feel the need, talk to me first. If we decide to drop, then I will sign a drop form for you, and then you have to go take it to your financial aid peoples and whoever else you have to deal with before turning it into the registrar's office. So your lecture schedule, okay, so you can see this week and next we're going to do eyes, ears, and endocrine, all the E's. And that's all going to be on test 1, and then blood and heart on test 2. Don't get excited. I know it sounds like those 2 tests have only 2 chapters. How hard could it be? There's a reason why there's only 2 chapters on it. Hell, heart gets their own hospital. You know it's going to be complicated. Blood, lymphatic vessels, and respiratory is test 3. Digestive, metabolism, and urinary, test 4. Fluid balance, reproduction, development will be test 5. And of course, you have the dates that we're going to be covering all those. So if you miss a day in class, there's no need to go, hey, what did I miss? It's like, well, we picked up where we left off, and I kept talking until the end. And then we're going to pick back up on that the next day. So it's really easy to figure out where we are. And then, of course, the final is listed there. Holidays, you get Easter off. It's a Good Friday. And then the last day to drop is April 29th. So after test 4. So you'll have a really good idea of where you are in life by the time the drop date comes around. And again, I highly suggest not dropping until the drop date, because then you get on almost an entire semester of information. So when you have to retake the class, it'll be familiar instead of dropping it tomorrow and then be completely lost and wasting your money and stuff like that. Okay. Dig that, Harry? Questions? Partially shaded anything? Alrighty then. So the handout I gave you again, at the top it has the Science Tutoring Center schedule. So like a concept of the days that they're open. So you care about the last little part of it, obviously everything before spring break is in the past. So you can see the times that they are open. This little QR code again is what you can use to schedule your mandatory tutoring if you want to schedule mandatory tutoring. You can also schedule mandatory tutoring or testing times using the QR code. You can call them, you can schedule them in person, you can go onto AC's website and schedule it that way. There's lots of ways to schedule tutoring and testing. So there's no reason why you can't schedule, because there are lots of avenues for that. Science Testing Center, again, this is where you take all of your tests. They do already have a list of when my tests are, so they know to hunker down. So as soon as it's available, I would suggest scheduling times, because again, it gets kind of full and crazy and they only allow so many seating and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't schedule the time or you wait till the last minute and they're all booked, you made a 0. That sucks. Okay, so make sure you get those scheduled as soon as you can. That way you can plan your life and they know that you're coming. And again, if you survived at the first round, you know they are tyrannical. If you are scheduled at 5:30 and you show up at 5:45, they may or may not let you take your test. And they do have a habit of, if you're one of the last tests of the day, they're like, oh, it's 6:15. Let's go ahead and lock the doors. And then they do. Okay, so make sure you schedule, make sure you're on time, all that kind of fun. Questions, comments, questions? All right, I'll take stunned silence as no. Let's start the lecture. All right. They're like, oh, I should have asked questions. All right.
Question.
Yes.
The notes and eyes and ears,
Uh-huh.
notes are not opening, but the endocrine is opening, so.
It's because she's stuck. Not really. Let's see. Now, they did just upgrade the internet over. Did y'all get all those dramatic emails about it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, all spring break? I think it's funny that the guy that's over, his last name is Helper. It's like, you're not very helpful, are you, Helper? Oh, I don't have a blackboard back door here. You know what I wish wouldn't work? Duo. I wish that thing would just die. Anybody else have issues getting into their eyes and ears? Anybody not have issues?
The only thing I can get to look at right now is the industry, but I couldn't get tested on the review or anything.
Are we all in Firefox?
Yeah.
That's what we should be in, is Firefox.
What?
When you're a Blackboard, Firefox is the preferred thing. It hates the Google. It hates Safari.
Okay, well, let me try Google.
It definitely hates the E, whatever the E is.
E.
So anytime you're having issues, make sure you are logged in as your AC or AmarilloCollege.com email. Make sure that you are in the Firefox. Where's this? Hold on. Usually.
Has to be. Has to be?
Works best at.
Works best. Okay. I was just, because last semester I used Chrome.
Well, if you can sneak by, go for it.
Okay.
It's preparing my document. I'm super excited about the preparation. Oh my gosh. Is this where everybody else dies?
Yeah. Everybody.
Wow. Did y'all try accessing them from not Amarillo College?
No.
I don't have questions. No, they really want you to know about your bonus, don't they? It's a document, so there should not be a reason why you can't do it. Other than AC stuff. Magic. If only that would work. We will try piddling with this in lab because we don't have time to piddle. All right, we're just gonna have to be in the dark ages today and do something crazy like writing your notes. And that's working. And we'll try to get into that. Everything else working?
We're on eyes and ears, you said?
Eyes and ears. But everybody else talked. Except for that one.
Mine pulled up. I don't know.
Your eyes and ears pulled up?
My eyes and ears pulled up.
Nice.
No idea.
I mentioned that Blackboard sucks.
Mine didn't pull up, but it did let me download the file, so that I could open it up and work.
Okay.
So
Try that.
All of my-
I tried to right click and see if it let me download.
Ooh. We can pop out the right. My right click is not.
That's weird. I can't download
I
that.
think the sleeveless box will do it too.
Let's see if maybe it's.
Oh, what?
I cannot
It
download.
freaked out for a moment. Oh, that's why it's freaking out. I'll download. Try that one.
There you go. Oh, I know how to download this. Never mind.
Oh my God. All right, try the download button.
So just eyes and ears. I just have a, okay, well, never mind. Anterior
Did I mention
cavity,
black what's
back of the eye, posterior. And
So fiddle with that, see if you can download it at home, see if you can get it at home. It may be their brand new internet sucks, because they did warn us that some things won't work, like probably Blackboard and everything necessary to teach a class. Any other questions?
set the mood
All
here.
right, so eyes and ears. Eyes and ears are in chapter 17 in the textbook. Now, chapter 17 has all your special senses. So eyes and ears are on test 1. We're going to cover the sense of smell with the respiratory system because it makes sense because you smell with your nose, you breathe through your nose. Good. And then, of course, the sense of taste we'll talk about with the digestive system because you kind of taste things as you digest them and eat them. So when you're looking at studying, you don't have to look at the taste section and the smell section in chapter 17. Only the eyes and ears components are going to be on test 1. So we're going to start with eyes. Okay. Now, a lot of times the eye is compared to a camera, like a real camera back in the day when they had cameras that were on your phone. So your different parts kind of correspond. So the eyelid is for protecting the conjunctiva, for the projecting. It's kind of like the lens cap or the filter that you might have on your camera. The cornea, the lens, that's going to help focus the incoming light and project it onto the retina, just like the lenses do in a camera. That's kind of how they got their name. Iris and the pupil. Again, the pupil's just a hole, and the iris is the colored part that opens and closes the hole. That works like the variable aperture system on a camera, so you can let more light in for night vision photos and less light for day photos. Sclera, hard part, the white part of the eye, that's going to be protected, the casing of the eye itself. The pigmented epithelium, so the inside of the eye is dark. Okay, it's why our pupils are black, because it's so dark inside of our eyeball. You can actually look inside of the eyeball with the light, which is what your eye doctors do when they shine the light in your eyeballs when you go get an eye exam. They shine the light through the hole to see the inside of your retina and the side of your eyeball. That darkness helps to absorb excess light so it doesn't bounce around, because if it bounces around, that would cause a blurry image. Very similar to how you have to have darkness on the inside of a camera. Digital cameras, not so much, but again, back in the day when you had film is photoreactive. So if you were to expose film to sunlight, you just ruined your entire thing of film. So you had to have that darkness. And then, of course, the retina. The retina is where we have our photoreceptive cells. It's those cells that translates light rays into a neural transmission. So they're going to be stimulated by the different light rays, and it's going to turn that into an action potential. So just in case you thought you were able to escape, we'll be talking about action potentials throughout the semester. So if you don't remember what an action potential is and what causes it, feel free to go look at your A&P1 information, because if you don't remember sodium, potassium, all that fun stuff, you're going to have a hard time this whole semester. Okay, so you need to make sure you know the basics of A&P1. Again, because I'll be saying a whole lot. You learn this in A&P1. Again, you'll have those flashbacks, maybe a little bit of twitching, that kind of stuff when you're remembering that. So our retina is going to convert those light rays into a photo image that is going to send up an action potential to your brain, just like the film is going to take sunlight and turn it into an image using a chemical reaction to get us those pictures. And look at that, it's like the inside of the eyeball. We're not going to spend a lot of time in lecture talking about the parts of the eye, because I'm going to guess that we've all seen eyes. Okay, it's kind of a thing, especially if it's Halloween season, eyeballs are everywhere. If you've been to an eye doctor, they probably have a picture of an eyeball somewhere on a big old poster for you to look at. So they're pretty straightforward. We will obviously looking at anatomy when we get to lab today. So we're going to be really concentrating on the anatomy of the eyes and ears in lab, but we're not going to concentrate too much on their anatomy in lecture, because why double tap? Okay. Look at that, it's a retina. So again, if you've been to your eye doctor, the odds are they took a picture of your retina, and it looks something like this. It may look even more colorful because we have fancy cameras now. But again, you have the macula lutea, which is going to translate to yellow spot, because macula means spot and lutea means yellow. So on a naked retina that, recently deceased, it looks like a yellow dot. In the very middle is something called the fovea centralis, where lymphobia means a dent or hole, like we saw with our bone markings, and centralis is the middle. So in the very middle of the macula is the fovea centralis. This is where our Bestis's vision is. This is where we're going to aim everything. So we can pick up that information, convert it into an action potential so we can see properly. So that's something, again, next time you go to the eye doctor, you can now identify, and you can wow your eye doctor with your knowledge of the internal environment of the eyeball. They get a kick out of that kind of stuff. It's like talking to kids about dinosaurs. Okay. And there's your blind spot. Can't see out of that. That's where everyone's running away. Okay. Our lens does change shape. So a lot of times when we see the lens, especially when we see it in the dissecting buckets, it's very hard because it's been fixed, so it doesn't rot or anything like that. But in real life, it's kind of flexible. So it's kind of like the sole of a shoe. So it does have the ability to change shape a little bit. As it changes shape, it is going to refract the light, move it, and focus it onto that fovea centralis. So your lenses are constantly changing shape, constantly moving, so we can see things properly. Now, when we put the image onto the retina, there are 4 different processes that's going to get that image from the world onto the retina so we can convert it from light into an action potential. If we have a problem with one of these 4 processes, we're not going to have clear vision, we'll have blurry vision, we'll have problems with seeing images. So all 4 of these things have to happen at the exact same time for us to get the image to where we can convert it into an action potential. So refraction of our light rays, accommodation of the lens, constriction of the pupil, convergence, all the fun stuff there. Look at that, it's like an eyeball. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, because of the way the lens is made, the different layering of the proteins, when things are viewed through the lens, they get flipped. So everything is projected onto the back of the eye, upside down and backwards. And this is something our brain has to learn to be able to translate, because this is how we always see things using the eye. It's the brain that has to translate it over. It's just like if someone's speaking a different language and you're converting that in your brain into your native language so you can understand what they're saying. So this is something that we all have to deal with and learn how to do very early on. And if you've watched Wild Wild West, anybody watch that one? You don't see it very often. It's one of Will Smith's earlier ones. It probably wouldn't be shown today because of all the funny jokes, which would make them canceled in about 5 seconds, right? Anybody seen Wild Wild West? Shame on you. It's great. Will Smith does a lot of crippled people jokes because the bad guy's on a wheelchair, and the wheelchair guy does a lot of black people jokes because Will Smith is black. And when you watch that movie, there is one scene where they have a dead head and they're projecting a light through his eye to show what his last image was as he died, which isn't biologically accurate and possible, but, it's a Will Smith movie. We don't expect accuracy, do we? Never. But anywho, it's kind of funny because in one scene they have to flip the head over because like, oh yes, everything's upside down and backwards. It's like, oh, the one accurate thing they do the entire movie. Other than that, it's not very, but it's still a fun movie. So our first one is refraction. The definition of refraction is bending or deflection of light rays as they pass through the various media of the eye. Now the eye has different components. So as this light goes through the eye, we first pass through the cornea. That's the clear part on the front of the eye that the light goes through. That's what your contact sits on, is your cornea. That's solid. Then it's going to go through the aqueous humor, kind of watery. Then it goes through the lens, solid. Then it goes through the vitreous humor, your eye jelly. And then it hits the retina. So as light passes to the retina, it goes through a solid, a liquid, a solid, a semi-solid, and then there. And each one of those media reflect and refract differently. This is something that you might have noticed in a swimming pool. When you look down, your arms and legs don't always match properly, or you go to catch something and it's like 2 inches to the side. Swimming. Okay? If not, look at a clear glass of water, put a straw through it, you notice the straw looks broken. Okay? That's refraction. Liquids bend light differently than air, that bend light differently than solids. So our eye has to deal with those changes and has to be able to still project the image onto that exact spot on the retina for us to be able to see. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, the lens is made out of protein because being animals, we're made out of protein. The difference is it's a crystalline form of protein. It's kind of like carbon, right? If you have carbon just kind of lumped there, you get something like coal or graphite. But if you stack it nicely, you get a diamond. Very different. No one puts a lump of coal on their ring going, okay? Because it's not as pretty as a diamond. It's the exact same element. It's just stacked differently. Our proteins do the same thing. Most of our bodies, the proteins are stacked, and we're kind of squishy, and we're not see-through, which would be terrifying if we were see-through. But within the lens, the way they're stacked just perfectly that it's more like a crystal, more like a diamond than graphite or coal. Okay, so it makes a window, so to speak, allowing that light to come in properly. And being proteins, again, they're still somewhat flexible, so we can bend and twist the lens to reflect and refract differently. So normal refraction, 20/20 vision, in case you've ever wondered to yourself, what is 20/20 vision? At 20 feet away, the object that is reflecting light, those light rays will come into the eye parallel. Okay? If we're further than 20 feet away, we won't be parallel. If we're closer than 20 feet away, we won't be parallel. But 20 feet away, they come into the eye directly parallel, hits the fovea centralis, and we don't have to do anything about it. Okay, it's just that's the magic number for that to happen. So when you have 20/20 vision, you look at something 20 feet away, usually your eye chart is 20 feet away from you when you're viewing it, or they manipulate it using, cameras and computers to make it appear as if it was 20 feet away from you. Now, if we see everything perfectly 20 feet away, the light comes in parallel, it hits the fovea centralis, everything's perfect. That's known as emmetropia. So if you have 20/20 vision, you have emmetropia or an emmetropic eye. So there's something fun, big word to learn. Okay. So if you do have 20/20 vision, they're kind of rare. Now you can go tell people you've just been diagnosed with emmetropia. Maybe we get lunch out of it or something. Okay. Now, most of us probably notice we don't have 20/20 vision. We have a lot of corrective lenses out in the room. If we don't have them on our face, we have them on our eyeballs, so we can hide them. So not 20/20. We get two different types. We get myopia. On the street, myopia is called nearsightedness. Okay, so some people say nearsightedness. The science way to say it is myopia. This is going to happen when the light coming in focuses in front of the retina. So it's kind of like if you play catch and they throw the ball and it lands in front of your feet. You can't touch it. It's there, but it's just out of reach. So you're going to have a blurry image because the image focuses in front of the retina instead of actually getting to the retina, getting where it needs to go. Now, this can happen for two reasons. One, the eye is too long. Eyes are not perfect spheres, okay? So they're not like soccer balls, okay? In real life, they're somewhere between a soccer ball and a football. Now, if your eye is more football shaped, it's longer, then that means as the light comes through the lens, it's going to focus it too soon because the retina is too far back, just like if you took a step back if someone was to throw that ball and you miss. Or the lens is too thick. So if it's too thick, it over-refracts. It does too good of a job and focuses it early on. So how to fix that? You can use a concave lens. Concave lenses cause divergence. They spread out the light rays. So when the light rays hit the eye, they're wider than they're supposed to be. So by the time the lens narrows them, it will fall onto the retina. It gives it a little bit more time. People who have myopia are perfect candidates for LASIK eye surgery because when you have LASIK eye surgery, they use the laser to shave off your lens. So if your lens is too thick, you get LASIK eye surgery, you shave off the ends, and now you don't have to wear glasses. If they overshave, you have to wear them for the opposite reason. Okay? So not everybody can have LASIK eye surgery. You can only get it if you have myopia or if your lens is misshapen with astigmatism. So if you have farsightedness, you can't get LASIK eye surgery to fix that. Look at that, speak of the devil. Hyperopia, farsightedness. The nice thing is this is the direct opposite of nearsightedness. So if you can remember everything about nearsightedness, just do the opposite for farsighted. So hyperopia, farsighted, they focus behind the eye. Okay, so again, it's like if someone was throwing that ball at you and they threw it behind you. You can see it, but you can't get it because it's too far back. Now, it doesn't actually focus because it can't go through the eye because the eye is solid. But by the time it hits the retina, it hasn't come into focus just yet. It's still kind of blurry. And this happens either the eye is too short, okay, you're more like a soccer ball than a football, so the back of the eye is too close to the front of the eye, so it doesn't get a chance to focus up, or your lens is too thin. Okay, so it can't refract properly. So if you had LASIK eye surgery, that just makes your lens even thinner. That would just ruin your eyesight. So again, if you have farsightedness, laser surgery won't work for you. It only works with nearsighted. Correction, you do a convex lens, and a convex lens causes convergence. It squeezes the light rays together, so by the time they go through the lens, they'll be focused by the time they hit the retina. Astigmatism. Now this is a single word, okay? Back in the day when I was diagnosed, it's like, oh, I have astigmatism. They're like, no, honey, there's no space. It's one word. So you can have astigmatisms. It can be a plural word. So this prevents the image from focusing on the retina properly. What happens is you're dented, okay? So the cornea should be having a perfect curvature. Your lens should have the right curvature. If you've got a dent in your cornea, it's not curved like it's supposed to be, that's going to change how the light rays go into the eye. If the lens is wonky, it has a dent in it, or has a thin area and a thick area, that's going to change how light goes through it. So an irregular curvature of the lens, which can be corrected for using LASIK eye surgery, so they just shave off the thick spot to match the thin spot. You may still need glasses, but you'll have them for different reasons. Or, for most people, it's the cornea. You know if you have the astigmatism that's based on cornea misshapenness because you have to buy expensive contacts. Okay? Cheap contacts have a perfect curvature. If you have astigmatism and you've got a dent, if you put a perfect curve onto a dented thing, every time you blink, the contact would swoosh. And you could lose it into the back of your eye, and then you hope to hell it falls out eventually. I've heard of people's like months later, parts of the contact kept coming out. Like, it's terrifying that they could just migrate back. But if you've got that astigmatism, you've got a dent. So what happens if you want to wear contacts, you have to get a contact with a dent that matches the dent on your eyeball. Most of them are weighted, okay? So if you look at your contact, there'll be like a little clear line that you can see, and that makes a little thick area, so it kind of anchors it in place. So when you blink, it doesn't squish off of your eye, you don't get blurry images every time you blink. And unfortunately, it means that you have to pay absurd amounts of money for your contact to fit your eyeball. So, yay, astigmatism, what's getting more expensive than the typical. Presbyopia, old people eyes, okay? We've all seen this, and if you don't have it yet, you will. But you probably might have noticed parents or grandparents, instead of looking at a menu normal, they kind of pull it out, look at it from far away. Okay, don't laugh too hard. It's going to happen. Or you'll have to do the whole lift the glasses up to see things. It's where I'm at in my life. It's like, I'm old. All right, so farsighted condition due to lessened lens elasticity. As you get older, you're not as flexible as you used to be. If you don't believe me, wait a few years, try to touch your toes. You'll start making funny sounds. It's like, oh, right? Or I had to get up today. It was horrible, traumatic. I think I broke something. Okay? As you get older, you're not as flexible. This is going to be true for muscles. This is going to be true for ligaments. And your lens also is flexible. Okay? And it has ligaments to pull on it and to relax. So as you get older, the lens isn't as flexible as it used to be. Those ligaments that move the lens aren't as flexible as they used to be. So they don't want to flatten the lens like they're supposed to. So we have weakened ligaments. We also have weakened muscles because as we learned in A&P1, we lose muscle strength as we age, right? Upwards of 50% by the time we're 60. So your eyes also have those problems. So you may see people have to get their prescription changed for their glasses as they age because of that. So weakness of the ciliary muscle, lessened elasticity of the lenses. They can't accommodate, they can't bulge or thin like they're supposed to, mostly bulging for near vision, and it's just caused by aging. So you can have 20/20 vision in your 20s and have to start wearing glasses in your 40s, just due to you're old. Deal with it. All right, accommodation. Accommodation of the lens is when the lens changes shape. It can either get thinner or it can get thicker. Okay, so sometimes we'll call it bulging, sometimes we'll just say thicker. So it's going to change its shape based on if you're looking at something up close or something far away. So again, the changing of it to facilitate near or far vision. So 20 feet away, those light rays are coming in perfectly parallel. If you step back further than 20 feet, they're no longer parallel. If you get closer, they're no longer parallel. So the lens has to catch that light ray and redirect it to the retina. So it's going to have to change its shape to catch and redirect and refract properly. When we're 20 feet away, we're oval. We're kind of in that neutral position. When we get further or closer, we'll change either to flatter or thicker to help accommodate for that, to help deal with the changing light rays. Now, constant accommodation, it requires muscle contraction and stretching and pulling on the ligaments. And we know if we exercise for long periods of time, we get tired, right?
Right.
Right.
Your
It's horrible.
ATP gets used up.
It does. Freaking ATP. So same thing happens in your eyes. You have that ciliary muscle pulling and relaxing and pulling and relaxing. And if you're constantly changing what you're looking at, it can make you have eye strain. It can lead to being tired. It can lead to headaches. And this is something we might notice, if you're, during lecture time, you're looking at the screen over 20 feet away from you. You're looking at your notes super close, screen notes. Eventually you get tired during lecture. So you yawn. It's not because you're physically tired. It's because of the eye strain. Or sometimes you develop headaches if you have to do it a whole lot. This is why you get tired while you drive, because again, you're looking at the road, you're looking at your speedometer, you're looking at the road, pretending not to look at your phone, looking at the road again. So you're doing a whole lot of accommodating, so you get tired while you drive. And then you get out and you're like, I'm perfectly fine. You get back in the car, you want to go to sleep. Because your eyes are tired. They've been exercising the whole time because of accommodation. So near vision, less than 20 feet, the lens will become spherical. It will bulge, okay? It'll get thicker. So what happens? The ciliary muscle, which is found around the back side of the iris, is going to contract. And when it contracts, it pulls the back of the eye closer to the lens. It's kind of like when you suck in your gut, your belly button gets closer to your spinal cord. We might notice that if we try to put pants on in the morning, so your pants will fit, okay? Now, whenever you suck in your gut, your pants feel looser, right? Same thing happens here. When the ciliary muscle pulls the back of the eye forward, the suspensatory ligaments that hold the lens get looser, just like your pants got looser, and that allows the lens to relax. It allows it to bulge. Okay, so it is going to become more spherical, and that redirects the light onto the retina so we can see something properly and not have a blurred image. Now, far vision, more than 20 feet away, the lens will become flatter. So what happens when you're looking at something far away, your ciliary muscle relaxes. And what happens to your pants when your gut relaxes? It gets tighter. Same thing in the eye. Once the ciliary muscle relaxes, the back of the eye moves back. That pulls on the suspensatory ligaments, so the suspensatory ligaments get tighter, and they pull on the lens, making the lens flatter. This is one of the reasons why staring off into space is relaxing, right? If you've ever read hardcore for a while and it's like, oh, I've got a headache, you stare off into space. Right? No one goes, I have a headache, stare something up close. Okay, so we have a tendency to want to look far away to relax because it actually relaxes the eye. It allows the ciliary muscle to relax, giving that muscle a little bit of a break. Constriction or dilation of the pupil. So again, the pupil is just that hole in the iris, and we can make the hole bigger to let more light in, or we can let the hole smaller to prevent as much light coming into it. So we're going to have changes of the pupil diameter dealing with light, but as we learned in A&P1, we also have it dealing with neural transmissions if we're in the sympathetic division, parasympathetic division, all that kind of fun stuff. You didn't think I'd break out those big words so soon, did you? Twitches. So constriction of the pupil. This is done by the circular smooth muscle of the iris, which means, of course, smooth muscle you have no control over. It's going to happen involuntarily. So this always happens during accommodation. Anytime the lens changes shape, anytime we have accommodation, the pupil will also change shape. So you can actually just look at somebody's eye to tell if they're looking at something far away or up close, because their pupil will be dilating and constricting based on what they're looking at. So you can tell if they're paying attention to you or not based on what their pupils are doing. So we're going to have the constriction of the pupil so we don't get too much light coming in, because too much light bouncing around is going to cause a blurred image. It's going to overstimulate the retina. So we're going to reduce the amount of light coming in so we don't have that blurred image. And of course, we also see this happening with the parasympathetic division. So our relax at home eating Cheetos, last week division. So we're going to have that constriction when we're in our relaxed state. Dilation. Oh, look at that big old anime eye right there. So this is done by the radial smooth muscle. The radial smooth muscle is going to open up that pupil, dilating that pupil, allowing more light in. Also occurs with accommodation because, again, if you're looking far, far away, you need as much light in as possible so we can see the whole image. So you can see if somebody's sneaking up on you from the outside, that kind of scenario. We also see the pupil dilating with the sympathetic division, the stress state, the fight or flight responses. Again, because when you're stressed and something's out to get you, you want to see them hiding on the corners of your peripheral vision, right? You don't want to be surprised by the lion attack. You want to see it coming. So you want to let in as much light as possible, as much image as possible, so we can see panoramic views. So things that are occurring at the same time, we have what we call that accommodation reflex. What is the pupil doing based on what the lens is doing? Because again, they match each other. They're always working together. So near vision, you're looking at something up close. You're reading your notes, you're reading your book. The pupil is going to constrict so we don't have too much light from the periphery coming in. It's going to help focus you on to that near item that you're looking at. Of course, when we're looking at near vision, the lens is also becoming spherical. So if you see somebody's pupil constricting, you can guess that they are looking at something up close. You can guess that their lens is spherical. You also can guess that they're in the parasympathetic division. So this is why we hear things like the eyes are the window to the soul. I can tell you a whole bunch about what you're doing right now just by looking at your pupil. Okay? This is also why it's easier to sneak up on somebody if they're concentrating on their phone or a book, because their pupil constricts so much they're looking at something up close, they lose peripheral vision. So you can sneak up on them easier. They're like, I just walked in the room. They were focused. Now, when you look at something far, far away, the pupil is going to dilate so we can bring in as much of the image as possible so we can get all that background information far, far away. And a lens is going to become flatter. So if I see a dilated pupil, I know I am looking at something far, far away. I know that my lens is becoming flat. I also might be in the sympathetic division. And again, this can be kind of disconcerting if you're talking to somebody, if you're up close and you notice your pupil dilate. You could guesstimate either one, they're looking over your shoulder at somebody past you, or two, they like you and they're attracted to you, or they're looking at somebody past you that they happen to be attracted to. It's kind of confusing. Right? So you can tell if they're actually paying attention to you because their pupils will constrict if you're sitting up close to them. If their pupil dilates while they're talking to you, they're probably not even looking at you anymore. They're looking at somebody else, or they really like you.
Or they're lying about liking.
Oh, yes. They could be lying about it. Photopupil reflex. So this reflex occurs due to light. Okay, you shine a bright light in an eye, you would expect what? Constriction of the pupil. When it gets dark, you expect dilation. Again, this is one of the first things that paramedics, doctors, nurses, everybody checks, especially after a head injury. Because if you have a head injury and you shine a bright light in somebody's eye and it doesn't constrict, there's something wrong with their brain. Okay? This could be due to drugs. Don't do drugs. This could be due to a concussion. This can be due to any kind of head trauma, neurological trauma. Okay? So this is one of those reflexes they check all the time. You know, follow the light. You know, what's going on. You know, they do that kind of thing. And it's something you might have played with growing up, right? Flashing lights on and off to watch people's eyes go crazy. Okay? Argall-Robertson pupil. So this is something you don't want to see. This is due to trauma to the central nervous system, usually to syphilis. So you're going to get the same responses if you were to have a head injury. The difference is here you have syphilis, that bacteria that has destroyed their brain. So their photopupil reflex is lost. So you can shine a bright light in their eye and they're not going to constrict. If it gets dark, they're not going to dilate. But the accommodation reflex is still there. So they can still change pupil diameter based on vision, looking close or looking far away, but they're not going to respond to light. So feel free to now use this on your dates. If they don't respond photopupilly, leave. They're either high or packing something you don't want, right? Just say no, kids.
Oh my.
Or get some antibiotics, right? Because syphilis is a bacteria. We can now cure it. We don't have to wait for your nose to fall off and your brain to go crazy.
Holy water.
I know, isn't that weird? It made people's noses fall off back in the day. Convergence. So this is the medial movement of the two eyes, so they are both directed towards the same object being viewed. We cannot see like chameleons, right? We've seen chameleons that can look at different things and focus on different things. That would freak out your little brain. Okay, it would have two images and it just can't handle that. It can only deal with a single vision, a single image. So the eyes have to work together. So the image again is directed onto the exact same spot of both retinas. The eyes have to move in unison. And the closer something is to the face, the greater the degree of convergence. Again, this is something you might have played with, right? Follow the finger. When you go closer, the person will go cross-eyed. Okay? Or if you part the fingers, they'll slightly twitch outward and then stop. Okay? So the closer something is, the greater the degree of convergence, the more cross-eyed that person is going to get to maintain the same spot on both retinas getting hit with that image. The further away, the lesser degree of convergence until we're straight forward. We shouldn't go completely separate unless you have some kind of muscle disorder. Now, this process is the only one that happens because of extrinsic eye muscles. So this is skeletal muscle. Because it is based with skeletal muscle activity, this is something you can do physical therapy to correct for. So, right, if you have far-sighted, nearsighted, you can't do eye exercises to get better vision. They just have to give you glasses because that doesn't change the shape of your eye, that scenario. Accommodation, you can't do accommodation exercises to get better and not have to deal with, vision problems. This one, if you have problems with convergence, you can do lots and lots of physical therapies to try to lessen your problems with that convergence issues. So this is the only one that's skeletal muscle. All the other guys, radial smooth muscle, circular smooth muscle, ciliary muscle, all those muscles are inside of the eye. All those muscles are smooth muscles. They're not under voluntary control. So problems with convergence. Our first one is strabismus, which is just a fun word to say, right? It's none your strabismus. On the street, this is cross-eyed. One of your little eyeballs go inward when the other guys aren't. So the visual axes of the two eyes differ. And that's due to one side being stronger than the other. It's just like if you worked out your right arm but not your left arm, your right arm would be bigger than your left arm. Most people don't do that unless you're in a M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
What?
Lady in the Water, there was a guy who did that on purpose.
51st Dates?
Huh?
51st Dates, the brother.
Oh, there's that guy too. He got some issues. So what happens? We lose coordination. And if we lose coordination, we can't move in unison. Now, the person doesn't see double. So they can't tell if they've gone cross-eyed or not. It's not like, oh, I've hit double. The reason why they can't is because the brain doesn't like seeing two images. So the brain will suppress the weaker eye. Basically, it says, sit down, shut up, I'm not listening to you. So they don't know they're having those issues. So again, this one can be corrected using physical therapies. So in the early stages, they'll do patch therapy, especially if they're small kids. That's where you get the eye patch and put it on, and you get to tell your kid they're a pirate for a day. Anything to get them to not pull the patch off of their eye. My kid has strabismus. It's like, fix that. And he's like, oh, exercise. It's horrible because it's exercise. If patching doesn't work, they can do atropine drops. So what atropine does is it relaxes the muscle, making the pupil dilate, so your kid looks like Marilyn Manson. Look him up, kids. He's a little disturbing now, but in the 90s, he was like a goth guy. But they'd have one big eye and one little eye. And what that does is when you dilate that pupil, it blurs the vision of the good eye, and then the weak eye has to do the work. Okay? And the same thing, you patch the good eye, so the weak eye has to do the work. It's like making your weak arm work harder than your strong arm. If that doesn't work, you can give them glasses with bifocals that have to cover up about half of the lens. That, again, cripples the good eye to make the weak eye work stronger. Now, if those physical therapies don't work, you can do surgery. Now, they won't do surgery until they hit their late teenage years, and you can only do the surgery once. And what you do with the surgery is you go in and surgically hobble the good eye. So they'll go to the strong eye and cut muscle, weakening it. So basically hamstringing that little bugger. So they have to work in unison. And if that doesn't work, you just have to deal with being outside from that point on. Now, when you have strabismus, both eyes are still working good. Now, amblyopia, if you continue to ignore the weak eye long enough, the brain stops talking to that weak eye, and the vision will get weaker. The vision will get poorer. It's kind of like when you have somebody who ignores their kid, and they just go nuts, and eventually they're serial killers. Like, I don't know why. Right? Pay attention to your kids so they don't become serial killers. Pay attention to your eyes so it doesn't get weaker. So you have a reduced vision in a normal, healthy eye. Even if that eye is biologically perfect, 20/20, it won't work right because the brain ignores it too much. So putting glasses on that person won't fix the problem. You just have to prevent further ignoring, further damage. So again, still problems with the muscles balancing with each other. This is usually referred to as lazy eye because if the brain isn't paying attention to that weak eye, it doesn't really care what that weak eye does, and then it just kind of floats around and does its own thing. So you have to control that little booger. So if you have strabismus, they'll do lots of therapies to try to prevent amblyopia, because at that point, there's nothing you can do to make the brain pay attention to the good eye. Even if you were to pull out the good one, the weak one would still be weaker because the brain still wants to ignore it. So unfortunately, the brain is kind of stubborn. So you want to stop strabismus from becoming amblyopia. This is why our microscopes are binocular microscopes. They've got 2 eyepieces. That's why gunners usually try to use 2 eyepieces. If you are a gunner, especially like a tank gunner, a lot of times after they're done tanking, I don't know what the profession is, shooting up people's, they have to go through physical therapy to get their weak eye strong again if they focus using just one eye. So that's why we have binocular microscopes. Oh, speak of the devil, let's go to lab, where you may or may not see a binocular microscope. Don't forget to give me your card so I know you're here. Nobody wants to sit through this for fun.